President Trump's big spending bill projected by the CBO to add $2.4 trillion to deficits over the next decade. That's according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. Concerns about the debt have some congressional conservatives questioning the bill, how it's being constructed. Joining us now, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. He chairs the Commerce Committee. And, Senator, always good to have you on. We had Ron John. Which I don't think we can call him that. That's a surf shop. That's a surf, it's a series of surfs. So it's Senator Ron Johnson. I don't know. Depending on who's on, I get talked into a lot of things, and he kind of made sense to me in certain ways, Senator, in terms of maybe do two bills, do one where you make sure you get the tax cuts extended, and then try and really do the work to get back to pre-pandemic spending levels. Has the die already been cast, though? Is that ship has sailed? We're definitely not going to do it that way, are we?
Well, listen, I'm certainly supportive of doing multiple reconciliation bills because reconciliation is the main tool to get around the Senate filibuster, and we can use it to accomplish important policy objectives. But we have this one in front of us, as it's called, the One Big Beautiful Bill. And we're going to get it done. It is going to be ugly. It's going to be bumpy. It always is. In 2017, the last time we passed major tax cuts under President Trump, it was a long, drawn-out process. I spent literally hundreds of hours in 2017 negotiating different provisions. We're doing that again here. And so we will get it done. And listen, I think you mentioned Ron John. Ron is a good friend. He's doing a great job fighting to rein in spending. We absolutely need to do that. That he is absolutely correct. We saw spending explode during COVID, and then unfortunately, Washington politicians left government spending way, way too high. And so I think we need to do everything humanly possible to rein it in because the debt that politicians are racking up is bankrupting our kids and grandkids. So you would concede that in its current form that you have deficit concerns with what we're going to do, and there's going to need to be additional reconciliation bills that address, that improve on what this current bill is doing? Look, sure, we should do them in the future, but we have this one right in front of us. And I'm glad the House of Representatives passed this. I think the Speaker, Mike Johnson, he's a good man. He did a remarkable job with a really tough and fragile majority in the House. That's the thing. They sent over a bill that started this process. I'm glad they got together and got this done. I can tell you, Joe, in 2017, it was interesting. You look at how the process played out. The House sent over a good bill. It came to the Senate, and it got much, much better. And then we went to conference committee, and it got much, much better once again. My hope and belief is we can do the same thing. So what I'm urging my Senate colleagues is, okay, let's take what the House sent as a starting point, but let's be more aggressive. Let's rein in spending. Let's be more aggressive on tax cuts. Let's pass a really good bill. We're not there yet, but I've got some real hope and optimism that that's what we're going to do. So if you bring Senator Johnson in, do you lose Senator Collins? It's like whack-a-mole. It seems like in the House too. Yeah, look, there's no doubt it's complicated. I think there's a real possibility right now that the Senate is more fiscally conservative than the House, and that has not traditionally been the case. But here's why I think that. We have 53 Republicans in the Senate. I think it is quite arguable that the 50th most fiscally conservative Republican in the Senate is significantly to the right of the 218th most fiscally conservative House Republican. What does that mean? It means we can be bolder on things like how do we cut spending? Well, for one thing, on Medicaid, ensuring that illegal aliens are not on Medicaid and are not getting government benefits. That's something that the American people strongly support. That's something that can save hundreds of billions of dollars. On top of that, work requirements. I think work requirements are good public policy. They work incredibly well. Bill Clinton signed welfare reform into law. It proved tremendously successful, getting millions of people back to work. Putting work requirements in Medicaid and other federal benefit programs, again, saves hundreds of billions of dollars. I'll tell you something else you know a lot about, Joe. The Federal Reserve pays banks interest on reserves. For most of the history of the Fed, they never did that. But for a little over a decade, they have. just eliminating that saves $1 trillion. So there's a lot of things we can do to rein in spending, and I'm urging my Senate colleagues, let's show responsibility for the next generations. Let's do what's right.
You think that's going to go through, the idea of telling the Federal Reserve they can't pay the banks that interest anymore?
I don't know. I can tell you we had a robust discussion about it yesterday, and we're having a lot of robust discussions. Look, something else I'm pressing for is zeroing out the CFPB. That would save about $7 billion, but actually the biggest saving there is not even from the direct dollars. It's from ending the regulatory assault that is really hurting job creation. And so there are a lot of Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just pressing on the bank ones in particular because that's of interest to our audience. That would be a big differential in what the banks can be expecting to take in as revenue and as profit for next year. Is that likely, you think, to get done?
I don't know if it's likely. It is certainly possible. What I'll say is, for the history of the Fed, for nearly 100 years, it paid no interest on reserves. And then following the great financial crisis, they put in the policy of paying interest on reserves. It right now costs the Fed used to generate money for the American taxpayer. It's now costing about $100 billion a year. And the way it used to work is if banks wanted to make money, they had to go invest that money and make loans and take care of it on themselves. I don't see a reason why the taxpayers ought to be paying for it. That's one example that generates $1 trillion.
Look, it was put in place to ensure the stability of the financial system. They didn't want these runs on things. They were trying to do it. If it's unwound quickly, I don't know if it would raise any stability issues, but it would certainly raise profitability issues for the banks if it's done instantaneously.
Becky, what I can say is the banks somehow managed to survive for a century, and if you look at Dodd-Frank, it was put in place ostensibly to stop too big to fail. Now, let me ask you something. How did that work?
I don't want to be in the position of defending the banks on this.
And the small banks went out of business, many of them.
You make a lot of sense. I don't know that taxpayer dollars should be going to fund this. Makes a lot of sense. It's just a big change that could come up quickly. Senator, can I ask you about one other provision in this? It's a small one. But it's important because of the aspects of AI and what's happening. The House bill includes a provision that's called moratorium. And for those who aren't familiar with this, that would effectively prohibit state and local governments from being able to write any enforcement of laws or regulations on AI for the next decade. There is a bipartisan group of 40 state attorneys general who are opposed to this. They say that it's federal overreach, which sounds like something you would traditionally be pretty sympathetic to. They say it undermines the state's effects to try and address AI-related harms. And then there's the whole issue of the Byrd Rule, which basically says that the Senate cannot put a policy writer on a reconciliation bill if it doesn't have anything to do with the actual budget. And that certainly sounds like this. This is going through your committee. What's going to happen to that House provision?
So listen, as a substantive matter, this moratorium is very good policy. Just a couple of weeks ago, I chaired a big hearing on AI. Every single witness at the hearing I asked, what do you think about the state-level regulation of AI? Every one of them said it has the potential to be disastrous and that said we needed a moratorium. I'll draw an analogy to the 1990s. Earlier, I was talking about Bill Clinton signing work requirements and welfare reform and how successful that was. I'll give another analogy, which is in the 1990s, that was the dawn of the internet. And Bill Clinton signed an executive order mandating a light touch regulatory approach to the internet. That proved unbelievably successful. At the same time, Europe took a very different approach. Europe took a heavy-handed prior approval regulatory approach. Let me tell you what the consequences were of that one decision. In 1993, the American economy and the EU's economy were virtually identical. Today, the American economy is more than 50% larger than Europe's, and the two drivers of that are tech and the shale revolution. AI is going to be every bit as transformational, and you see state legislatures right now proposing ridiculous legislation. If we have a 50-state patchwork, you know what that'll do? That'll drive AI development out of America to other countries, and it will cause America to lose the AI race to China. That would be catastrophic. We shouldn't let that happen. Now,
Senator,
you raised the question, can we do it on reconciliation? That's an open question.